Welcome to the Reign of God Now. This video will be the first on a series on a controversial topic among many Christians, Christian pacifism. I myself am a Christian pacifist. A Christian pacifist is someone who does not believe in resorting to violence, such as physically or psychologically destructive actions towards another human being, even in instances of self-defense. Why? Because Jesus himself is a pacifist. Since Jesus is a pacifist, all Christians are called to the same pacifistic paradigm. Beyond the atrocious violence of human history and beyond the violent endorsing nationalistic pastors who are, in actuality, diametrically opposed to Christ's teachings, lies a core tenet in Christianity: nonviolence. Out of the 23,000 plus verses in the Bible, there is not one verse within the whole of the Bible that supports a just violence or just war paradigm among Christians. As a matter of fact, there is only scriptural evidence that demonstrates that Christians are not to conform to the paradigm of this world, and violence is a paradigm that the world indulges in more than others. You're probably wondering, where does Jesus specifically teach this nonviolent paradigm? Jesus not only teaches this paradigm, but he demonstrates it throughout the Gospel and even in the book of Revelation. However, in this video, I'll be addressing Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Here, Jesus commands his followers to a nonviolent paradigm. In Matthew 5:38-39, Jesus says to his followers, "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other cheek also." There are two imperative points to consider. One, the repudiation of lex talionis, and therefore the basis of retributive justice. And two, the unambiguous command for nonviolence. For the first point, which is essentially self-explanatory, Jesus repudiated the Old Testament standard of lex talionis, which is the moral standard of an eye for an eye. Christians are not to return harm for harm. For the second point, Jesus was specifically referencing violence. Preston Sprinkle notes in his book, Fight, A Christian Case for Nonviolence, that Jesus uses the term for resist that mostly suggests violent resistance. New Testament scholar N.T. Wright translates this verse, "Do not use violence to resist evil," in order to avoid any confusion about what Jesus meant. Put simply, when Jesus says, "Do not resist the one who is evil," he specifically prohibits using violence to resist evil. Now, a common response to this argument claims that Jesus was talking about a shameful backhand, since it was an honor and shame society. However, the parallel narrative in Luke describes this slap as a strike to the face, not a shameful slap. While the same command and negation of lex talionis remains in Luke 6:28-29. Therefore, we can conclude that Jesus was teaching that nonviolence is a mandate that Christians are to adhere to. None of these teachings presented by Christ reflect a just violence/war paradigm. Rather, Jesus is commanding us to the opposite conduct. Jesus himself demonstrated this by loving and praying for those who were crucifying him. "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Even under the most extreme circumstances, Jesus practiced an agape enemy love because Jesus is the exact representation of the Father. "Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father." It is the Father who we are commanded to represent. "But I tell you, love your enemies, and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven." And the reason why this command necessitates loving our enemies is because the Father loves indiscriminately. The Father loves both the righteous and the unrighteous. Ergo, we are to love those who are our enemies, even if they are persecuting us, just as the Father loves his enemies, and those who persecuted him by way of persecuting his Son and his believers. Nonviolent enemy love is a prerequisite for being children of the Father. Jesus does not condone violence in any form. Jesus was wholeheartedly against it, viewing it as morally reprehensible, a characteristic that did not reflect the Father. Thank you for watching. God bless you.